All right, here we are. And greetings wherever you are joining us from in the world today. My name is John Golden from Salespeople Online Sales Magazine and Pipeliner CRM. I am delighted to be with you all today. And welcome to the fourth in our Thrive and Prosper series. Yes, the fourth, can you believe it? We've had over 20,000 people now view the others in the series to date on YouTube alone. So I'm delighted about that. And today we're going to introduce the latest one, and this is called The Human Gene and AI in Sales, featuring 6 experts with different areas of expertise. So we're going to get a lot of different perspectives on what is a very, very important subject. I think most of you will agree. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of hype about AI in sales. So now we're going to hear from people who really know and are going to give us some great insights. Format for anyone joining us for the first time is there's 2 groups of 3 people, 30 minutes each. So please do try and stay with us for the whole time so you don't miss anything. Please also join in the chat on YouTube. When you see the chat area on YouTube, we'd love to know where you're in the world you're joining from, what kind of and what kind of input you have or insights you have to share with us. And please, please, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of these great events going forward. All right. And now my co-host, CEO and founder of Pipeliner CRM, Nikolaus Kimla, has a few words to kick off the event. Nikolaus.
Yes, thank you, John, for the nice introduction. Good morning to everybody. Good morning to the audience and to our distinguished speakers. Thank you for participating in this great event. I was in the preparation a little bit thinking, coming from Austria, Vienna, and having my roots deeply, as you can see in my background, in the Austrian School of Economics, I realized what is really the future. And I think we are really on a crossroad as never before in society, and not only in the US, worldwide. And the question is, I was doing a little publication 1.5 years ago without knowing that COVID will come about our automation, sales automation. And one of the chapters that I was writing on was who wins the future of automation, human or machine? This is 2 years ago. And I just want, as an introduction, to read a little bit about what I was at that time publishing. In the discussion of automation and machine learning, there is certainly one crucial question for sales, what we are concentrating on this our event that we do. We cannot cover all the other industry. We are focusing really on sales. And for everyone, is the future dominated by humans or by machine, or both together in harmony? I truly believe there will be such a decision, and it will have to be made in a new too distant future, not knowing that COVID is coming. We have reached a point of no return. Now, for there are machines today, if we suddenly had to do without, would mean the end of any industry. One important example is agriculture, which is highly automated today. We are feeding 7 billion people. We're also past the point of no return when it comes to our personal lives. Just look at smartphones. The relationship between our smartphone and a user have become even symbiotic and will become even more so. People are already freaking out if they lose their phones. It's like if you have lost a limb or a major organ. Yeah? We know we cannot influence which industry will totally vanish as a result of the machine. When workers are not longer working, where should they go? Today, with factories becoming almost completely automated, I believe it's a question of education for the workers. And that's what we will talk about today. How is that really for sales? And I'm delighted about this event, and thank you for participating.
Yeah, listen, thank you so much, Nikolaus. Thank you. And yeah, and if we freak out about our smartphones, it's nothing in comparison to our teenage children. If they ever misplace their smartphone, it's like the end of the world to them. All right, so let's get straight into it here with Neil Sahota. The first question here. So knowing that we have an exponential number of programmers around the world, and you have platforms like GitHub and all of that, and people are constantly working on and and coming up with new innovations. How is this affecting the speed of development of AI, in your opinion?
Interesting question, John. It's definitely helpful to have a lot of programmers, but there's actually, when it comes to AI solutions, coding is a really small part of it. There's three key resources that we actually need. First, no secret, data. We can't teach the machine without it. So do you have enough data to do that? But the question becomes, is the data good? What part of that data is actually meaningful, which is where we actually need data scientists. And there, unfortunately, we know we have quite the global shortage going on. The third key resource is actually, do we have the subject matter experts? So it's not necessarily just the technologists that we need, but we need the people that actually know the space. If you're going to teach or create an AI solution around like social media marketing campaigns, or how to do B2B sales, you have to have the experts that come in and spend the time to teach. And that's one area almost every organization tends to underscore. And it's tough for them to free the right people up because they're obviously very good and they're working. And so take time out means they're not doing their job at 100% capacity. But it's the balance juggle to use AI effectively. So data scientists, domain experts.
Yeah, and how fast is AI developing in your opinion? I mean, is it developing as fast as you imagined it would, or is it going a bit slower, or has the pandemic had an impact on it?
It depends on the industry. Some industries have really jumped into it, and so it's going very fast, and some are slower. But in the realm of digital marketing, it's been moving at light speed. They're actually the first industry to actually really embrace AI because they saw the value out of it. And so we actually have things now where we're using AI to help decode people's, not just sentiment, but personalities, behaviors, hobbies, even the language they use. So if you think about, each of us have our own kind of personal language and what resonates, there's actually AI solutions already out there to help us decode that and speak that person's language.
Wow, that's incredible. All right, thanks, Neil. Nikolaus. Oh, you're muted, Nikolaus.
Dan, thank you. So that leads me immediately to the next question for Lisa. It's interesting because you see, what Neil said, machine, they don't lie and they can be programmed to function in a particular way, but people are different. People have different motivations, so they can be motivated and have also many variables. So how we can be sure that they execute with a noble purpose, because it could be also bad purpose, what we see right now recently.
Well, you said, Nikolaus, that we're at a crossroads, and you're right. And the crossroads we're at is, are we going to let our humanity be compromised by technology, or are we going to use technology to lift up our collective humanity? Yeah. And one of the things that we know in the sales world is that a transactional sales team who is looking inward, who is only thinking about their own revenue targets, is not as effective as what we call a noble purpose sales team, whose North Star is to make a difference to customers. And the reason that this connects to technology is you can look across an organization and the numbers are really clear and present. You can look into your data and the numbers will be right there. And you can make that the story of your company if you want, but it's not a very exciting story for customers. And so as a leader, what your challenge is to use both the data and ideally more qualitative data around how are we actually impacting customers, and also use the humanity of it. And the way I often describe it is this: if you're at the sales meeting and you're on the virtual Zoom room and you got 600 salespeople, you can sit there and you can say, we got to hit this multi-million-dollar number this year. Go, go, go. Here's where we are. How many deals we have in play. We need to close it, close it, close it. And it sounds great. And everyone goes, woo, let's go close that business. but you haven't given them any story that's interesting to the customer. Because if you walk to the customer and say, you know what I'm really excited about? We're going to make a shit ton of money this year and you're going to help me. No one's going to care. And so one of the things that you have to do is you have to tap into your people's best instincts. So you asked, how do we ensure that our people are operating with the best and highest intent? You infuse them with a sense of noble purpose by saying, here's how we make a difference to customers. Our purpose is to improve life for customers, and you get them rallied around that collective story, and you measure how they're doing around having an impact on customers. And that's how you ignite what we call the tribe of true believers. Because people whose North Star is to make a difference to customers will be operating out of their best intent. The data tells us they will outsell transactional sellers, they will sell bigger deals, they will sell higher margin deals, and they will sell stickier deals because they've put making a difference to customer right at the center as their North Star.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Because we see in our company right now more and more as a technical approach, it helps a little bit, but at the end, the people need more and more relationships.
Yep.
It's the interesting. The more technology is, the more the relationship is there, and the more they want to interact in some form because it's so much going on. And so I agree wholeheartedly. John.
Yeah. Well, this is a great segue into Adrian. So, Adrian, do you believe that COVID-19 has made human-to-human selling more important, or has the reliance on technology during this time actually decreased it? So, what is your opinion? Because obviously, human-to-human selling is something, you know, dear to your heart. But has it been impacted by COVID in a positive or negative way?
Thanks, John. I think such a fascinating question. And I think the answer to the question is actually both. That I was just reading, I think it's Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He made this statement that 2 years of digital transformation has just occurred in 2 months. And that's because of the pandemic. That when they look at Microsoft Teams, just that platform alone, over 200 million meeting participants in a single day, resulting in 4.1 billion meeting minutes in a single day. Now, to Neil's point about artificial intelligence needing data, that is a tremendous amount of data that's being captured. That the nuances of conversation, how people talk, what they do to advance deals, all of this is being captured. And the scary thing I think about artificial intelligence and why we have to take it seriously is artificial intelligence, not only does it learn and learn rapidly, but it also teaches itself. And I think there was an example of an experiment that was done where these machines actually developed their own language. And the experimenters had to shut down the machine because they didn't understand what the machines were saying to each other. So that's how scary this is. So I think if you're at the lower end of sales, and I love what Lisa's point around noble purpose, I think if you're operating at that transactional level of sales, all of this data that's being gathered as to how sales get done, what buyers are looking for, all of that, I believe, can be replaced and will be replaced by artificial intelligence. And the sales profession is going to get smaller, but those who survive and who will thrive in this new segment of selling, professional selling, are going to do extremely well. Because I think to your point, Nikolaus, humans need to connect. We need relationships. And to Lisa's point about noble purpose, we want to connect not just to people, but to relationships. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for businesses to bring this emotional passion. And it's going to be needed more because of the pandemic. People are isolated, they're disconnected, they're in front of screens all the time. And there's this human longing to connect to one another and to connect to something bigger than ourselves. And so I really take Lisa's point about noble purpose being really critical. I think it's going to go both ways, John. Because of the pandemic, we're going to see a tremendous replacement of sales professionals. And because of the pandemic, there's going to be a significant opportunity for people who can operate at a higher, more strategic level.
Yeah. Thanks, Adrian. Totally agree with you, and totally agree that I think the even preceding the pandemic, I think there was started a hunger for more human interaction and less hiding behind technology, more using technology to enable those interactions as opposed to replace them. And I think the pandemic has accelerated that. So, Nikolaus.
So Neil, interesting is a couple of years ago, it's only 4 years ago, I was giving a speech at DePaul University and I spoke about GitHub, and at that time it were 23 million programmers and are only 40, 50 million repositories, little programs that people are working right now. There is over 50 million, only a couple of years later, million programmers and 100 million projects. So everything is exponentially. So what do you think percentage-wise of B2B sales or other related sales roles? Because I would say, like Adrian, we will see if not new jobs are for sales are created out of this old data mining, what we need, that AI will be take over. And why do you think this will be more efficient and effective?
Interesting question, Nicholas. I'm not sure that it's going to be that AI is necessarily taking some of these jobs over, but will be taking on some of the tasks that people do. So much like Adrian was actually talking about, it's going to free up people's time. And so the question becomes, do we need less salespeople, or do we rechannel the salespeople to take up other types of work? And so we're seeing with a lot of the AI sales tools already out there. It's helping us do some better just management of the customer interaction. Like when was the last time we talked to them, what's going on with their company, their industry. We're looking in tools now where we can actually, well, I shouldn't say looking, we actually have tools now where we can actually understand, like, again, their personality, what the values are, even provide a little bit of a little assistance on how to speak, that this client's going to care more about like the value, this person will care more about the ROI, the cost benefit. So where to focus your conversation. But I think what's going to happen is as some of these admin tasks come off our plate, or as I like to call them, like some of the urinal cake activities go away, it's going to free up the B2B salespeople to actually do more of the creative work, more of the interaction. So the FaceTime, whether it's virtually or in person with the client. And I think it's actually going to enable the development of relationship building. So if you think about the future of the profession, I think it's going to shift more towards, are you a great communicator, collaborator? Can you build relationships and build them quickly? You got a nice tool set to help you do some of this stuff, but no AI is going to be able to pick that piece of the puzzle up.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're really looking at.
Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. John?
Yeah. Listen, and that's fascinating as well, and we even got urinal cakes into that conversation, which was something else too. So Lisa, so let's talk about leadership here, right? How do leaders capture the best traits and really help to enable the best traits of people, but also leverage technology to help them maybe express themselves and really bring those traits to life in a more positive and more effective way?
It goes back to what some of the folks were saying. Adrian made the great point. We have this longing to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Once you get beyond food and shelter, human beings have two fundamental needs. We want belonging and we want significance. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we want to know that our part matters. So how does that translate to technology? I'll give you a super simple example. You probably have someone in your life, especially if you're my age, who was great at birthdays, who remembers everybody's birthday, who sends them a card, who kept the big birthday book. It's somebody's aunt or grandma, or maybe you've got one of those friends who's great at birthdays. Well, I sucked at birthdays. I never remember anybody's birthdays, and I felt bad about it. Here comes along Facebook. Guess what? I'm great at birthdays now because Facebook gives me the reminder, and I will send people a heartfelt note on their birthday and tell them all the things I love about them. And so it's real. It's who I really am. But the technology enabled me to bring that to the fore. Now, it's the same technology that enabled my sister-in-law to become a conspiracy theorist. So it can be used for good or evil. But how does technology work?
We would have to talk about that.
That's another subject. And I'm not even getting into the urinal cakes, which is not something I have anything to do with. But But when you talk about how does technology bring this to the fore, I'll tell you there's two really practical things you can do in sales with your technology that will help your people. One is use your technology to capture real customer intelligence that is based on dialogue and AI with the customer. What are the customer's actual goals? Not when are we going to close this deal? That's the easy part. But what is going on in the hearts and minds of this customer? And you can use your technology to capture that and put it in front of the seller when they're making a call, instead of putting in front of the seller, close it, close it, close it. Put the customer's goals in front of the seller. The other thing that you can use your technology to do is to lift up how you make a difference to customers. So we teach people in our consulting practice how to tell these customer impact stories. And what the technology enables you to do is to win hearts and minds across your entire organization. So nobody's having a sales kickoff this year. So you're not going to be sitting in the bar telling all your stories. Instead, what you can do is you can use the technology to show this is how we made a difference to customers, and you can infuse it into every single seller that you have. So you're having that time when you're lighting up their frontal lobes and putting them in their best and highest intent, and using technology to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Lisa. I won't tell you what your sister just commented in the comments, but anyway.
It's my sister-in-law. That is not
sister-in-law. Sorry, yes.
Just so we're clear, this is not my niece.
I love it. I love it. Adrian, when we hear all of that, so it's amazing what really is the new world and the transformation. So what kind of skills salespeople really need to focus on and enhance in order to stay really relevant in this world? And in my opinion, where can they really learn that?
Yeah, great question. And I think it does beg the question, what are these skills that we need in this brave new world? And I think so a couple come to mind. One is right at the top of my mind is strategic thinking. That if a salesperson is unable to think strategically, they're going to have a great difficulty replacing machines in the new world. Lisa spoke about noble purpose. So, our company needs to have this noble purpose, but we're also interacting with companies that have noble purposes. And she mentioned, having the customer's goals front and center. So I think this ability to think strategically in terms of goals for the customer and our organization, and to hold both of these in mind at the same time, and being able to navigate how do we advance the noble purpose of both organizations. This is going to require strategic thinking. I think holistic thinking is another type of thinking or skill that's going to be necessary. The ability to think big picture and see how all the moving parts come together, and maybe anticipate things that are happening, in an adjacent industry that my customer is not thinking about, but I understand how this might impact not just their company, but the whole industry. So this ability to see the whole picture and bring value doing that. Not so much a skill, but maybe a trait, and that's going to be critical, is empathy. People want to feel cared for. They want to feel connected. Think of these relationships as like business marriages, where we're committed to each other for mutual benefit. And the unexpected will always happen. Right now, we're talking about COVID-19. Before, we were talking about 9/11. Who knows what we will talk about in the future? But one thing guaranteed is that if I really care for you and care about your noble purpose and you achieving your goals, and that I really care for you and we're connected on that level, I think there's always going to be opportunity for me to help you navigate the future. Yeah, and I think finally, creativity and innovation, that it's human to create, and having my customers' best interests at heart and my organizations and my partners' capabilities at heart. How do I bring all of that to my customer in a creative way? I think that's going to be critical. In terms of where do we learn these things, Nikolaus? First of all, I'm going to do a plug here for the Strategic Account Management Association, that's SAMA. If you go to their website, strategicaccounts.org, in this association, we are absolutely focused on helping salespeople and account managers develop these higher level skills. And I facilitate one of the programs there called Core Zero. So I would absolutely direct everybody who's interested in this topic to go to strategicaccounts.org. Other than that, I think it's going to be self-motivation and learning. You know, YouTube is a whole university. You can use it to watch cats and dogs, you know, do gimmicky things, or you can use it like a university and really seek out critical thinking, strategic thinking, and just start putting these things together. So I think there's going to be a lot of self-directed learning and that self-motivation that's going to be required to develop these new skills.
Yeah, thank you. Each of that, or what you said, needs an own session to go deeper, because it's so, all what we are speaking right now is amazing to me, because it goes so deep if we really dig a little bit and want to accomplish something together and showing that, because I'm so happy what you said, especially we and at Pipeliner, we have 6 core principles, not values, principle, because a principle is everywhere the same. And one of the principles is this holistic seeing, to see as a whole. Why it's so important? Because we are part of a bigger picture and we contribute to this bigger picture. So it's amazing. So I absolutely agree. And thank you for showing that. And we will lead people also after this session, definitely, to all of you guys. Yeah.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely. And thanks for that. And thanks for those insights. But as an owner of a dog and 2 cats, I don't think we should minimize their contribution to the world either through YouTube. Listen, thanks very much. That was our first group: Neil Sahota, Lisa McLeod, and Adrian Davis. Some fantastic insights. As Nikolaus said, each of the contributors, we could easily have gone really deep on their contributions themselves. So as we get ready to go to the next group, we just want a word from our sponsor who makes all of this possible. That's Pipeliner CRM. Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. And we are back. And now I want to introduce the second group of today, which is DJ Sebastian, Anita Neilson, and Shona Elliott. Okay, so let's start off with you, DJ. So in your, one of the things that you wrote about before was that salespeople don't really want to interact face-to-face anymore with prospects. What makes you say that?
Well, certainly it is more difficult to get meetings, face-to-face meetings with customers. First of all, a lot of that is depending upon the way B2B customers, their trends in buying are changing. They now have access to so much information online. They could pretty much research the products and the solutions that they want, put that into a list. They have volumes of information, and some of them think they can actually conclude a transaction and actually purchase a solution without the involvement of a salesperson. And they can, but they can also make huge mistakes in doing so. In fact, about 90% of B2B buyers, when polled, would like to have been involved in a sales cycle without the help of a salesperson. So that makes it more difficult for salespeople to make the case that they need to get in front of their customers and help advance a sales cycle. And also, of course, dealing with the pandemic, there are restrictions that are applied right now that make it even more difficult to meet face-to-face. So given those challenges, some salespeople just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'll just fall back and rely on remote communication, whether it's just send them an email, a video, or leave a voice message or a text message. And that's the lazy way to do it. And while sometimes they can end up getting somebody's attention, it doesn't work as well as being face-to-face with a customer. In fact, the higher the price of a solution, the higher the value, the more important it is for the salesperson to develop a strong customer relationship. And in developing that relationship, you do it face-to-face. Because if you don't, you're just going to get a minimal amount of information. When you are face-to-face, you can do things like discover what their actual needs are. You can understand more of their political landscape within the company, who are the players and who to watch out for. You can also get into a situation where you can find out what competitors are being looked at. So you need these insights to be competitive in your own deals, and you do that by being face-to-face. And then also doing a face-to-face meeting gives you the opportunity to ask open-ended questions, drill down into their actual needs. So that could take you places where you can't go with just the technology leading the interaction. Making that emotional connection is very important before the customer likes, trusts, and counts on you to make a decision in your favor.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. And I guess even things like what we're doing today, like Zoom, I mean, it's still face-to-face. It may be technology enabled, but we've still got our cameras on and we're still interacting with each other.
Right. But it's also important to get creative too. There are things you can do when you are face-to-face that you can't when you're on a Zoom call or on a phone call. There are a lot of things that they need to get to know you. They need to get to know your solution and your organization to get comfortable in recommending you and your team for a purchase.
No, absolutely. I had it yesterday, DJ. I had a very good meeting yesterday in the morning in England, and there were a couple of people on the call, and we were all on the screen. And it was a real connection. Each one was at home, and we were speaking about their pandemic and everything before we spoke about the solution and the problem that they have. So absolutely. But that leads me to Anita, to the question. Anita, what do you think about, what is your thoughts of AI and other technologies, how they will making sales professionals obsolete in the future? Where you see that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an important question. I think that sometimes we have a tendency to look at AI, machine learning, all these technology, robots as an either or when compared to sales professionals. But the reality is it's not either or, it's both. Each has its own value. Each has its own way of making a difference within the B2B sales process and motion. The idea for technology should be to augment or enhance whatever it is that sales professional does. I think we forget that salespeople, their most valuable resource is their time. And I found that when there's technologies that can actually help them optimize how they use their time, that's where it has a really big impact. And somebody said earlier, harmony, 100% behind that. Technology and the humans, especially in sales, have to work in harmony. And it takes time to figure out what that is. And I think that's where it's really important to understand from a salesperson's perspective, what can they do to differentiate? What are their unique skills? Now, we've talked a lot about them already. I think it was DJ who just mentioned about the fact that buyers can do how much things, so many research, they can do anything that they need to before in terms of getting knowledge before they even get to a salesperson. So the salesperson value then becomes, how do they contextualize that product? So how do they take what that customer has learned about that product and make it really, really matter in the context of what that customer is? I think contextualizing, I think that's where the human skills come in, kind of the things we've been talking about, empathy, compassion, holistic thinking. I mean, in order for a sales professional to really be able to create value, first they have to know what value means to their customer. And I think that's where all of those things, such as empathy, the ability to really actively listen, that's where that comes into play. And in order to differentiate, you can't just know what the buyer wants to buy. You have to understand why they're buying it. And that's not, to my knowledge, something yet that machines and technology can do. One thing I'll talk about contextualizing is with regard to COVID, I think I've found that the salespeople that are really thriving in this time are the ones that are able to take this idea of the impact of COVID and look at it from their customer's perspective. So how is the pandemic impacting that customer and their business and even that individual? And I think that's so important because everyone is living through this pandemic, I mean, globally. And so there isn't anybody who isn't experiencing some sort of change because of it. There's a lot of overwhelm because of it. And I think that people are flooded sometimes. There's so many things that you have to balance as human beings. You've got, work from home, and you've got kids learning at home. You've got animals in the background, all these things that really are just making you more human. I think the salespeople that are winning are the ones that are able to really understand that and help their customers contextualize the value of their product or services for what they're doing and how they're working and living today. The other thing is, if you're a salesperson and you can help create a sense of safety for the future for that customer, if you can help them de-risk the thought of the buying process that they're going through, that's going to go a long way. Like I said, there's overwhelm. And so there's not that much resource, even in the customer's mind, to have to go through all of that level of detail and figure it out for themselves. So there's real value there. And it becomes human to human. That interaction is human to human, which means that there's psychological principles at play, and sales pros can leverage that. That's part of what I think is going to be required to upskill sales professionals going forward in the future. As long as humans are doing the buying, I think sales professionals have a chance not just to stay relevant, but to differentiate, because they can get to the bottom of what is going to motivate that buyer to buy, what's going to make a difference to them. So that's a lot about human to human, but I'll tell you about tech. So I think tech does have its place. It's super valuable. For example, there are sales leaders who are listening to recordings, AI recordings that have their salesperson rather speaking to a customer. And that helps them improve how they coach that salesperson. So now they can do much more targeted coaching that they probably couldn't do before because it would have taken a longer time to uncover whatever that deficiency was. That's huge. I mean, that's where technology is really doing something to have an impact on a sales organization. I look at me, simply my day-to-day, my meetings, I get them transcribed. I use Otter, and I will get it because my notes are crap. It's really hard to read what I write during my notes during a meeting. Now I love it. I get it transcribed. It's helped me be more effective. Things like Alexa, right? You can say, Alexa, doing an expense report on my to-do list. Now, well, I wish Alexa would do my expense report. We're not quite there yet, but somebody needs to come up with how that works. There's things that these technologies do that make our life easier. And I think that's what we have to look at is who does what best.
Yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a lot about our philosophy too, is about how technology can remove a lot of mundane tasks, free up time, and actually allow salespeople and employees in general to be much more high value in what they do. So get rid of the mundane tasks. So Shona, how can leaders use technology to really support their employees and their teams and really get them motivated, particularly as during this time, a lot of people are kind of disconnected or maybe feel a little bit invisible because of the pandemic?
Thanks, John. I think now more than ever, leaders really need to be deliberately thinking about connecting with employees. You kind of, in a pandemic remote world, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You're not seeing your employees on a day-to-day basis in terms of walking the halls, in the kitchen or lunchroom. And so you're not thinking of them. So building into your daily practice, who do you need to connect with and why do you want to connect with them, and being purposeful about that, I think is really critical right now. It's kind of a double-edged sword at the moment with clients I'm working with. You've got leaders who are like, well, I'm not sure if my employees are actually working at home. Are they being productive? What are they doing? And then on the flip side, employees are feeling invisible. They are feeling out of sight, out of mind. And employees, they want to be able to be trusted. They want to be cared for. They want to be engaged and know that their feedback is valuable. So leaders really need to connect with them, build that sense of trust, and build in kind of comparable connection points that they had in an in-office setting virtually. So I know a lot of leaders have built in, kind of like the standing office hours virtually, so people can just dial into their Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and it's just kind of like open office hours. It's regularly scheduled, so people can just pop in, so to speak, like they'd pop into the office of the leader when they were in office and have those chats. I know a lot of leaders are doing things on Mondays, such as kickoff week. So they'll get together, people will talk about the weekend. So there's that humanness that's involved. And then they will then branch into the priorities of the week. And so it's trying to build in the cadence that you had in office and doing that virtually. From a virtual perspective, video conference, Zoom meetings, I feel the relationship piece is, basically almost the same with respect to in office relationships. If you are really being authentic, Adrian had mentioned empathy, and still like honing into your emotions and trying to predict what employees are feeling and then asking them about it, I think is really critical. And there's not one size fits all for organizations. And so you can't just like research, what technology tools will help me build culture in the times of pandemic. You'll get some great tools and all work, but it's really understanding what your employees need and asking them about it first. So instead of making the assumption as to what is the best new tool to help, engage employees right now in this time of crisis, it's talking to your employees about it. How can I stay connected to you? What does that look like for you? What do we need to do together so our connection is strong? And really taking their feedback into consideration as you're using technology. And I think that's kind of the forgotten piece. Tools are one thing, but what is most meaningful and valuable to employees is another. So it's finding that bridge, getting their feedback, and then building the solution together.
Yeah. Well, DJ, I have coming what we have heard right now from Shona. It's interesting because it's a perception. And in your book, you said often we look at salespeople as a necessary evil. Yeah, well, this is out there. Yeah. How can AI help to overcome this perception?
Yeah, we don't, but a lot of company executives.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you say that.
Believe that salesperson, a couple of executives have said this to me, and they have the mindset that their products are so good that they literally can sell themselves. And that's rarely the case. So great salespeople are usually the engine that fuels revenue growth in a company. And unfortunately, great salespeople only comprise about 20% of the sales team, but they are people that have learned that in order to be great, they need to understand the customer business problem and how they can associate value with it. They need to communicate that in a very good way that is compelling. They need to be curious to look for other things that aren't clearly visible, and they need to have a passion so that they live and breathe being able to help their customers get to the desired state. And the usage of powerful AI tools in sales can certainly help the great salespeople, but it can even help people that are the other 80% within the sales organization. And here are some ways. Being able to harness the explosion of data. Neil mentioned earlier how important it was to be able to look at that data and do some analytics on that data to understand certain insights that can be applied. For example, if you've got a salesperson that is brand new or pretty much new to the territory, how can they take a list of 30 or 300 or 3,000 accounts and distill it down to focus and build account plans for just those that are most important and that will generate revenue for the company? So being able to use AI tools that can recommend the best accounts to work based on information that's in our CRM, based on information from additional data sources that we've applied to predict how we can win more business with those, how we can generate leads and advance opportunities within those accounts. The data can help you chunk through, the data analysis can help you chunk through in areas where a salesperson might be sitting and looking for this information for days and weeks. Another area is forecasting. Companies typically have problems with forecasting because it has to deal with the future. But using AI tools to analyze based on wins and losses of similar deals, monitor a deal progress and the velocity and the fit within the company, and then the prior behavior of customers we've been successful with. How can we match that up to our companies or prospects that are in our pipeline? Opportunity analysis, looking at the propensity to buy. This is a key factor in using AI for sales. Looking at your key process steps, are they followed? How your solution is positioned, and how you can compete with the other companies who are trying to take that business away from you. Being able to recommend actions that can help you accelerate deals. So those who embrace those AI for sales tools understand that they can be freed from mundane and time-consuming tasks and focus their opportunities on what is most productive and not just those mundane tasks. And that's, a lot of salespeople are transactional right now. Mm-hmm. And those are, I think Neil mentioned it earlier, those are those that are going to be going away when these tools come to play. There will always be a need. There will always be a need for a strong salesperson, the great salespeople that are valued consultants and not just looking for a transaction, but looking to deliver value and grow a relationship.
No, absolutely.
Now, not every salesperson is expected to become an expert in AI. That's why we are seeing a new role emerge, that of the sales technology analyst. It's kind of a combination between a support person who's an expert in data science, a subject matter expert, and part salesperson. And that sales technology analyst will work in conjunction with the sales team to provide insights that the entire team can use to be more productive and win more deals.
Well, that I would have to, sorry, John, I would have to say a lot to this point, because we at Pipeliner try to our technology when people see, and I'm not promoting right now our technology, I want just to make the example and saying we are trying to bring upfront to the people the strategic important part between the lagging and leading indicator, because you can only really predict the future, nobody can do, but better analyze what could happen if you understand the past, the lagging, and then you have some indicators on leading, and so you can do that. And we try to bring that to every person, to everyone, so that we're not again creating a new group of specialists. That is our approach, but it has to be proven, and it would be an interesting topic on that. I leave that to John one day, what he wants to do in the news session.
Yeah, thanks, Nikolaus. All right, Anita, let's face it, as leaders, we all fall prey sometimes to the shiny new toy syndrome, and it's very easy to just latch on to new technologies. But how can leaders better evaluate what technologies are useful and how they can be leveraged in order to help salespeople and not lose that human element?
Yeah, it's such an important question, and unfortunately something I see all the time. I think it starts with making sure that you engage the end user of that technology, or who's going to use that product, that shiny new object. It's amazing to me how many times there's organizations that go to buy a technology. In my case, it'd probably be some sales technology, and they don't have salespeople on their team. For example, I'm working with a prospect, and they're looking at a sales technology for their team. It's a sales enablement group and sales enablement leader that I'm working with. So they are obsessed with this technology, one of the several that they're looking at, because it has amazing data capabilities. It can give you this, that, every kind of report you want. And these people that are looking at this, they're very data oriented. I mean, they like their numbers. But the problem is data is really cool, but the interface for that technology is not very intuitive for salespeople. And I can tell by just looking at it that it's going to be annoying for those salespeople. They don't have salespeople on the team to make this decision. And so, I mean, I told them that they have to get somebody on the team, but can you imagine if you buy that because it's such a great data tool, you take it, run it to the field hates it, they barely use it, they find ways around it. That data is garbage, right? So you've defeated the entire purpose of the reason that it was so shiny in the first place. So I think it starts with making sure that those people are involved and always knowing, that's your end user. And if we're going to get business value from any technology, it has to be those individuals that are finding that business value. I mean, tech is only as good as the people who wield it, right? And so as leaders, as buyers of technology, we have to say, what are the pains and needs in the day-to-day of our people? And then look at, okay, what are the technologies that address those? Obviously, there's going to be some that are more shiny and fancy than others, but the basic question is, these are our needs. This is what our people are going to need to use this technology for in order to increase revenue by X, in order to become X more efficient. That is what you have to look for in that technology. Anything else is a bonus, and that's cool, but you cannot make it over complex, especially in sales. Salespeople won't use it. I will tell you, we all know how hard it is to get adoption for even things like a CRM. So if it's not intuitive, it's not something that is easy for them to use and they don't see the value, you're not going to get very far. So having them on that committee is critical, and just including them every step of the way. So when there's demos being done of that technology, make sure there's salespeople on the phone or sales leaders who can ask questions about that technology, or can it do this, or how would it do this? These are things that sometimes as leaders, we don't even know. We're not in the day-to-day sales motion anymore. So that whole process of just vetting the different tools, it's critical to have them in that. And then have them test it, right? So there's a proof of concept or a pilot. This group is going to get in there and test it. What's funny is some of the things I always recommend that they get top salesperson, low end salesperson, the middle salesperson, and then the person who's the most negative salesperson. We all know that there's one on the team. And then the person that's really like the change agent, the positive person who's always trying to bring the team forward. You get that group in there to help analyze, you will make a good decision on that technology, because to get that group to all agree on something, it's going to have to be something special. Shiny or not, doesn't matter. It will be valuable to the organization. So I think that's the way you have to look at it. People have to be engaged and involved. You cannot impose technology on people. It will fail, and it will fail the company along with it. So we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a great point, Anita, and I love the idea of all the different people being involved, but the idea of the naysayer or the negative person, because there's nothing better than a reformed smoker, right? Is somebody who is against something and then just becomes the champion of it, and people are like, "Oh, you were against it, and now you love it." So it's got to have something there. Fantastic.
Yeah, and they help adopt it, right? That's one thing I should have said. Now that you've won them over, they're going to be the ones that help bring it through the organization. So they'll mobilize and make everyone understand this. The adoption increases. So yeah.
Nikolaus.
I have to say to Anita, you should be our ambassadors, because I always say, you use what you like.
That's it.
What you like, I have not to convince someone to use something. Yeah. So there you have the adoption. When you like something, it's easy. Yeah. And that I 100% agree. Yeah. Well, Shona, our final question for this meeting this morning. What do you think? Can technology in the future really provide indicators for salespeople, employers, our partners, or whoever are in the team committed, particularly as motivation factor to decrease over time? Because we know people often start enthusiastically at the beginning, and then they are decreasing over a couple of months or years. What do you think about that?
Oh, yes. This is, to me, like one of the most exciting aspects of technology in respect to employee engagement, employee commitment, and employee enthusiasm. I think one of the challenges organizations have faced in the past is, how do you find that out in real time, how employees are doing and how they're feeling? And organizations have done employee engagement surveys. They perhaps have evolved to do pulse surveys, and the data they get from it, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to interpret it. They don't know what's really behind it. And so to really kind of peel the layers of employee engagement, currently you have to meet with the employees, talk about the pulse survey results, ask them what it means to them, how are they feeling? And that is a real onerous process, takes tons of time. So most employers actually don't do that. Where technology, and specifically AI and ML, really comes into play is that there are now things like sentiment analysis, and I heard that spoke about in the first session, where AI can really take a look at text and see how employees are feeling. They can do predictive analysis, and it's done in real time. And so you're not guessing anymore as to how your employees are feeling. It's there. The data is there, it's interpreted, and the more data there is, the more the technology is learning as to those predictive patterns and behaviors of your employees. So and it takes out all the legwork of trying to guess. So to me, that is super exciting. So you'll know in real time, you can take actual action to address the concerns. The flip side of it, of course, since this is more new technology, is really training leaders as to what to do with that. So data is only as good as the data is. So you have to make sure it's good data and that you have a proper analysis of it and that it's not used against employees. So as employees start to know that their communications are being monitored, perhaps depending on how they perceive it, they're worried that it's going to be used against them potentially. And I've seen some scenarios where that has been indeed the case. So as that is introduced into an organization, it's really being cognizant as to how that data is used, how it's communicated with employees. And so it's a trusting environment, and it's meant for development and to increase commitment and increase engagement as opposed to being used against them or trying to mold them into a certain predictive behavior or patterns. So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done yet on how leaders use the data that's there and available and these incredible platforms and analytics and use it in the right way and to build that trusting environment with the employees so that they feel that they're not being watched, monitored, evaluated all the time, all day, every day. But really, it's meant to really get a good gauge on how they're doing because you want them to be committed. You want them to stay motivated. And this is the best way for employers to be able to get a sense of that in real time and not guess about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shona. Listen, and thanks everybody. This is bringing up the end of our event today. So I'd like to thank Neil Sahota, Lisa McLeod, Adrian Davis, DJ Sebastian, Anita Neilson, and Shona Elliott for joining us today and sharing so many great insights. And obviously I'm my colleague as well, Nikolaus Kimla. I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to people from around the world, from Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria, the United States, the UK, Austria, Slovakia, who joined us live today. And also thank you to the backroom staff who make this possible as well. That's, Claudia and Martha and Milos and Johnson and Marek and Matthew and all those people who support putting these events together. Please do share out the link. Please do subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of great information here and people have given up their time to share it with you. So please share the link as widely as possible. And now I'd like to ask Nikolaus to wrap up for us.
Yes, thank you, John.
Not to rap for us, just to wrap up for us.
Well, I can try. I've never done that before. It would be definitely something new, but I'm super excited about that we are ending the year with our main topic on sales. We have started, and we know for all of us this year was or is still a big challenge. Nobody has ever imagined when the year 2020 started what will come. Nobody has even thought about how the world has changed and will change. We're in the biggest transformation as ever, and we see and that is the beauty on this event that we've done today, is that we see that humans are getting more important than ever. It's not the technology. The technology is supporting, and we have to, and we need the best technology. And we need everything in that area to help salespeople and sales manager to make good decisions and helping to focus for the customer, to walk in the shoes of the customer. I like that so much, what we have heard about the difference between that salespeople should have empathy and really going and slipping into the shoes of a customer and understanding, and also the strategic thinking out. That is amazing to me, because that's the future really. Behind my back, you see these Austrians are from the Austrian School of Economic, and what they have done, they have put the human being in the center of their theories, the anthropologies about the science of the human being. And the science of the human being, we can see today, the preferences are changing, rapidly changing for each one of us. Right now, I have seen so many people changing where they want to live. People are just right now in this new technology that is possible, and to the pandemic, they say, hey, I can leave this city. I can live on the countryside in a much more nicer, cheaper house and work from there. So preferences are changing. This will be also a challenge for technology. And this challenge we will all face together. So thank you. And I'm grateful, and John, back to you for this great event. I just want to say John is working tremendously hard on these events, and it's amazing how he's really have put it all together. And we are really having a lot of people around the world watching and participating in these events that we try to steer up our core value of education. Thanks, John, for all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Nikolaus. And again, thank you everybody who joined us and the panelists. And as I said, please share out the link. There's so much great information. And we need to continue to educate, and we need to continue to learn, and we need to continue to discuss, so we drive the future as opposed to let it happen to us. So thanks everybody. Thank you. We'll see you all for another event.